Hello and welcome back to the All for United YouTube channel, and this is your just another transfer show. This is a show where we give you the lowdown on all the latest Manchester United transfer rumours and gossip. We're going to gather opinions over the weeks from our wonderful contributors, of which I've got two today, and also we're going to get some opinions from the writers that matter. Today I'm joined by two guys from the All for United family. We've got Joey and we've got Neil. How are you doing, guys?
Pretty well.
All good.
Great.
Nice to meet you all again.
Cool. Awesome. Glad to have you on again. So also, guys, don't forget, we want to hear from you. So drop the video a like, give the channel a subscribe, and also get involved with our sort of social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, all the things that we're on. You'll find the links for those in the bottom of this video description. So we've got a massive game on Sunday. There's no getting away from that. But let's not forget, we're here to talk about transfers, and the transfer window opens on Monday. And the biggest talking point at the moment has to be the United goalkeeping situation. Now, the big rumour in the last couple of days has all been around United's potential number one or number two for next season, which is Dean Henderson. He's currently on loan at Sheffield United, as you guys will know. There's talk that he may go back to Sheffield United on loan, but there's also talk that there's been a massive bid from Chelsea who are interested in securing his services. So I'm going to start with you, Joey, on this one. First of all, where do you see Dean Henderson being next season?
Realistically, he's probably going to go out on loan because I think Solskjaer has made De Gea his guy. You see that with the contract extension, the money he got. He stuck by him. You know, a lot of people called for Romero to start against West Ham. And, you know, De Gea didn't really have a whole lot to do that game. But when he was called on, he made the saves. I think this is just a wake-up call for De Gea, to be honest. But as far as Dean Henderson goes, I think personally, and I said this in the last video, I think they should just bring him back, have him and De Gea compete for the number one shirt. I know with the Euros coming up, some have mentioned that Dean Henderson's going to want to start. He's going to want to, you know, cement his place in the England squad because, you know, there's a couple England goalkeepers. You know, Pickford, he's not that good, but you got Nick Pope, who's leading the league in clean sheets. So is he going to want to come here and only play cup games or not even play or fight for a spot? You don't know. For me, Dean Henderson seems like the type of guy who's really confident in himself. He said multiple times that his goal was to be the number one United keeper and not just play one or two games, but hundreds of games. So I personally think he'll go out on loan again. And that'll be, I mean, Sheffield probably maybe are getting Europa League, so that'll be some good experience for him. But like I said, and I've gone on the record, I would keep him at United to compete for the number one shirt.
Yeah, thank you, Veg. I understand exactly where you're coming from. I mean, the only skepticism I see with the loan deal for Henderson again is whether he feels like it's going to sort of stunt his growth, and does he need some sort of security now in his future and where he's going to be playing his football. I mean, to be fair about the interest regarding Chelsea, Neil, it's something that's been around for a while. I think obviously back in January, Chelsea were having issues with their keeper. They probably had issues with Kepa all season, to be fair. He's certainly not lived up to his £70 million price tag. You know, do you think he'd be a good option for Chelsea? And also, do you think that actually United would want to sell, you know, a goalkeeper that could potentially be their number one like next season to Chelsea?
I don't really care if he's a good option for Chelsea. I don't care about Chelsea's goalkeeping situation. I think he's our best option now. I've flip-flopped on De Gea, as people who've heard me before and followed my Twitter feed would know. I think he should come back and be our number one. I think he's the best keeper in England. He's the best English keeper. Pickford's having a poor time, and if I was Henderson, I'd be going, get me in the United side and I get the England shirt, and then he could have the England shirt for 8-10 years. He said many times he's a United fan. United is the only club he wants to play for. He wants to play 300 times, 400 times. So let's get him back and let's give him his head. And personally, if we could get 30-40 million for De Gea, I'd put that in the war chest because we might need it depending on how Sunday's result goes.
Yeah, I know. Again, I know exactly what you're saying. We're not worried about Chelsea's situation. I totally agree with you on that one. But one thing we do have to consider as well, Joe, is that, we've already got 2 goalkeepers at the club now. A lot of people have said, many a times, we're quite lucky to have Romero because people reckon that Romero's probably the best number 2 in the world. And obviously, he's usually quite patient. He sits on the bench, he doesn't moan too much, and he's happy with the role that he's got at the club. But what, if we were to bring Henderson back and obviously have De Gea, they're obviously going to be the number 1 and number 2. You can argue whatever, which order you'd have them in. What about the futures of Romero and indeed Lee Grant?
I think Lee Grant's time is up. He's been, I can't even say he's been a good servant. He's just been there. He's been a good 3rd choice goalkeeper, I guess, if you want to say. With Romero and the fact that we talk about him as being the best number 2, and I think part of that goes into the fact that he's just not fussed for the number 1 shirt, it seems. It seems like he must be a massive Man United fan because he gets to sit on the bench every week and watch us play. So I think Romero was linked with a couple other clubs today or yesterday, and it is a tight one. I would say if he's comfortable being the 3rd option, because right now we have 3 keepers, in Romero, Grant, De Gea, then that's something you could look at. But, for Romero, he's good to bring in against the lesser sides in the cup competitions. But I remember a game against Wolves where he didn't play that great. So, it's hard to judge him. We sit here and talk about him being his best number 2, but we don't – when you're playing League One sides and championship sides for most of your time, the numbers are going to look good in your favor. So I think it does matter who you play. It's a tight one, man. What I think will happen is I think for at least one more season, he'll send Dean Henderson out on loan, and De Gea will be his guy next season. But we'll see. We'll have to just wait and see.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Neil, I'll come to you. We're talking De Gea here, we're talking Henderson. I've seen Henderson also have a couple of bad games this season, probably most notably earlier in the season against Liverpool of all teams. He has been criticised at times. Do you think there's media speculation at the moment linking us with goalkeepers like Jan Oblak, for example, who many people regard now as the best goalkeeper in the world? Do you think there's potential, should I say, that United may choose to keep Henderson out on loan, sell De Gea and buy another number 1 like that, and someone like Jan Oblak responding to those rumours?
I can see why people think that, but I'd be very surprised if United are going to go out and spend 70, 80 million on a keeper when the other figures that are bandied about for certain other players that they're looking to sign. And I can't see Woodward spending 300 million, not in a million years, to be honest. I think that Romero will go to Leeds. It seems a good fit. Bielsa being the manager. Leeds are desperate for goalkeepers because they were just a couple of clowns the last couple of years. I think I'd get, and like I said before, I'd get Henderson back, and if we could sell De Gea for 40 mil, whatever we could get for him, I'd sell him. And I would keep Lee Grant because there's a good 3rd keeper, and he might be good with helping the younger goalkeepers coming through, and he doesn't seem that bothered. And he's probably on 30 grand a week, so he can't be too disappointed. That's the way I'd go. I just don't see United spending tens of millions on a goalkeeper. I just don't see it. If this Oblak was that good, I don't think he'd still be where he is. As people's, as has been suggested, he's that good. I haven't seen enough of him, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. But I was thinking. Like you say, I can't see him spending that kind of money. And probably if they're gonna sell De Gea, it's probably a risk to go into next season without him. Obviously, to fall back on if it doesn't quite work out for Henderson, because I think we can all agree it's slightly different. Probably being Manchester United goalkeeper to being Sheffield United goalkeeper, because obviously it's a different type of game, which obviously is a discussion for another day.
Let's see if he's got it. Let's see if he's got it in him to be the Manchester United goalkeeper. If he isn't, we've made a mistake. This club's made many mistakes over the years with goalkeepers. As soon as Schmeichel left, and when we had some, my God, it was like Billy Smart circus for about 5 or 6 years. So if Henderson's good enough, and he seems to be cocky enough and arrogant enough, and we like that in goalkeepers, let's stick him in and see if he can cut the mustard. That's what I'd do. Let him go.
No, that's fair enough. Just on this, Joey, before we go quickly, the other problem's going to be for Henderson is that obviously he's probably not going to have a lot of time to prove himself, and therefore United are not going to have a lot of time to move in the transfer window, because we've found out today that the Premier League season is going to start on the 12th of September. So it's going to be very unlikely that United are going to have any any pre-season games, if any at all. They'll probably play against some local sides and they'll be behind closed doors or something like that. So, is that going to be a problem that we're actually not going to get to see, Henderson have too much of a chance to prove before the actual season starts and we're straight into the big games?
It's going to be interesting. Like you said, there's very little time. And the thing that kind of bothers me about that is I just think they need to rest. As soon as the season's done, we're looking at, I don't know, the Europa League comes back in, I think, a week or two, and United have a 5-0 lead, so they're already going to be going into the next round in that competition. And then I think they play Wolves, which, could go either way. But like you said, there's not a lot of time. So they probably should be making their decision on, well, they should have already made it, you would think, on what they want to do in the goalkeeper situation. But I think depending on who they're looking at in the transfer market, center backs or defense, I don't think they're going to want to cause too much overturn with so little time to prepare for the next season. So that's why I honestly think De Gea will be here next season as the number one, and Dean Henderson will probably be at Sheffield again. There's not going to be a whole lot of time, you said. But the other thing is, too, you look at Dean Henderson and you think, all right, well, you've played in the Premier League. You grew up in the United Academy. So there's not a whole lot of risk, I don't think. Yes, it's different playing for United than it is Sheffield. However, you're also going to be playing behind a better defense with a better midfield and so all-around better team. So you're not going to be tested as much, but what you do in those moments that you are tested is going to be, that's the characteristic you're looking for from Henderson. But yeah, like I said, not a lot of overturn going into the next season. I think De Gea will be the number one.
Okay, great point, Joey. Thank you for that. Right. We're going to move on to the next line of defence now in front of the goalkeeper, and obviously that's our centre-backs now. These guys have been a bone of contention, I think, since we came back from the restart. Obviously, probably even more so in the last 2 or 3 games when we started shipping goals, to likes of Southampton and Chelsea. Is it me, or does it feel like the need for a central defender as just sort of magnified in the last couple of weeks? It's strange, and I think that's probably down to seeing that Maguire's probably not as sturdy as we thought he was. Now, United have been linked with the likes of Koulibaly at Napoli, the likes of Nathan Ake at Bournemouth. I mean, like any other position, United are linked with 101 players for all sorts of positions. Rafa Varane, I saw today again at Real Madrid, which he's been used a couple of times by him to get a new contract. How big on the priority list, Neil, do you think a central defender is this window, and who would be your choice of centre back?
I think we need a centre half. We might need 2. Personally, I'd go with one quite experienced centre half like a Godin. If we could get him up from Inter Milan, sure there might be a deal there if we do Sanchez going the other way. And then we do need another centre half. I'm not sure Ake. He's in a Bournemouth team that is shipping goals like my word. And he does look a decent player. He's quick. He might be a perfect option, perfect foil for Maguire. I'm not quite sure. If he was that good, would Chelsea have let him go in the first place? He seems to be a Chelsea boy. He possibly could go back there if they come calling. I think he's just as much a risk as any other player that we've been linked with in many respects. I just like big, solid centre halves. Koulibaly looks a hell of a player, but God, when he makes a mistake, he makes a belter. Don't know if you saw the Juventus game at the start of the season or back end of last year. So it's a difficult one. I saw United were linked with Johnny Evans today, and wow, that nearly made me reach for the bottle opener, I must admit, because we don't want to go down that route again. If he wasn't good enough then, he's not good enough now. Centre half, they've got to sort it out. I hope the scouts are out there and they've got someone. Maybe Koulibaly is the answer, that big solid centre half to play alongside Maguire.
Yeah, thanks for that, Neil. I mean, it's interesting that Neil mentioned the Johnny Evans transfer rumour because I saw that today, but I can't help but feel that if we wanted to do a deal for Johnny Evans right now, we'd probably have to pay in the region of 15 to 20 million pounds. Now, let's not forget, probably foolishly, we allowed Johnny Evans to leave a few years ago for 6 million pounds. And, you know, at the time, I thought it was maybe a mistake. I think we were too quick to get rid of Johnny Evans, but you know, as it turned out, that's what the club did. You know, we don't really, you know, with the options of centre backs that are out there to us, Joey. You know, do we really need to be looking at re-signing a centre back that we sold 5-6 seasons ago?
No, absolutely not. Listen, he's I don't know how old he is, but he's got to be on the other side of 30 by now. Listen, he was a good servant for the club when he was here. He wasn't in the manager Louis van Gaal's plans, and they decided to move him on. And listen, he's done all right at Leicester. Maybe that's his level. I never thought I thought he was good when he when he was next to Rio Ferdinand or Vidic. But I think on his own with like a Smalling or Jones, I mean, it's hard to look good. But no, I don't think he's the answer to our problems. I think they should be looking at a younger mid-20 center back. You know, someone who has some experience. You know, that's strong, quick. I think quick is the most important trait here because with Maguire, obviously he's not the most paciest, but he's decent at reading the game. I think Maguire's been fine this season. I know he catches a lot of shit for his transfer fee, but as far as the question posed to me with Johnny Evans, absolutely not.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree. I think, you know, and when you look at, like I've said, you know, I've reeled off some of the options there, you know, Ake, Koulibaly, even, you know, but Rafa Hernandez, there's a whole host of centre-backs out there that are available to United. One of the other noises that's sort of coming out in the media, and also, I don't know whether it's coming from the club or from the media, there's never no smoke without fire. This need for a left-sided centre-back specifically, you know, a left-footed centre-back. Neil, I'll come to you first. Do you think that the defender that we buy necessarily has to be left-footed? I mean, obviously, they're probably looking at Maguire and thinking long-term, you know, he's right-footed. They would probably like to put him out on that right-hand side. A few times this season, I've watched Maguire when he's played left-sided centre-back with Luke Shaw at left-back. And if Luke Shaw's having an off day, you know, that left side does severely lack a bit of pace. So first question is do they need do you think it has to be sort of specialist left-sided centre-back with a left foot? And then does that player probably have to have pace to sort of cover for the likes of Luke Shaw or Brandon Williams, whoever's playing in that position?
I think I'd rather have a centre-half with pace than necessarily a left foot because he'd be quick enough to get back. I think one of the big problems with the defence, particularly with the Chelsea defeat, is Luke Shaw wasn't playing. He gets so much stick, Luke Shaw. You got to feel sorry for the bloke sometimes, but he's been solid, in my opinion. He's definitely the best left back at the club. The last 2 or 3 games have shown that. And I think if he comes back Sunday, I think that make a massive difference to our defence. But I don't think we necessarily need a left-sided player. I'd be more interested in a pacey centre half. I mean, Vidic, Ferdinand, as we said the other day, both right-footed. Palace to Bruce, needed them quick, both right-footed. So we've done it before. We can do it again. You don't necessarily need a left-sided centre half.
Okay, thank you, Joey. Just come to you on that same question. What's your, you know, do you have the same sort of sentiments as Neil? Do you think they necessarily have to be left-footed or be able to play on the left side? And also, have you got any more names that you would check into the hat in terms of centre backs that we've been linked with?
So I just want to echo Neil's point on Luke Shaw and how fantastic he's been, and I think that he doesn't get a lot of credit. And you've seen that, like you said, with Shaw being out. You see how much that left side has hurt. Also in the Chelsea game, we probably would have had Luke Shaw on the left side of a back three, which would have made a massive difference. But going on to the left center back thing, I feel like this started with Louis van Gaal because he was so adamant about having a right footer and a left footer with Rojo and whatnot. But it's not a necessity, I don't think. You're kind of handicapping yourself in the transfer market when you're specifically looking for that, and teams know it, so they can charge you whatever they want. As far as targets go, there's only 2 left-footed center backs that come to mind. One has had a torrid time at Bayern Munich this season, and Bayern Munich don't get rid of players unless they're on the downside of their career. But Lucas Hernandez is one. He came from Atletico, plays left back, can play center back. He's left-sided. Not the slowest, not the quickest, but he's got some pace to him. I would look to think maybe I've heard Bayern are looking to offload him, so maybe like a loan-to-buy option. Depending on injuries. And the other one is Romagnoli from AC Milan, who's another left-sided, left-footed center back. He's in his mid-20s. Had a decent career so far. However, Milan are having a renaissance the last couple of weeks, and they're looking a lot better. So it'd be hard to get either one of those. I still maintain that Milan Skriniar is the center back that United should sign, using Alexis Sanchez as a make-weight in that deal. He can play on the left. He can play on the right. It doesn't really matter to him, I don't think. He's just having a tough time playing Conte's back three. We know Conte's not going to change that back three. That's his bread and butter. That's what he's known for. So I would say one of those three. And you look at all three of those signings that I'm speaking about, mid-20s, a little bit of experience. A couple of them might have won a trophy or two. But I think that's what we should be looking to. Because I also want a warrior back there in a way. I want somebody who's going to get stuck in, who's going to be vocal, who's not going to be afraid to yell to the team. Yeah. Take some of that leadership burden off of Maguire.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Romagnoli, actually, because when I was reading out the defenders that we've been linked with, that is a name that's come up quite a lot in the British press. And, I mean, my personal opinion, I'm skeptical about defenders that come from Serie A because obviously it's a different kind of league with a different kind of pace. But I think it's a league that's seen a bit of a renaissance, like you said, with Milan as well. And, it might not be the worst option. We're going to move on in a sec, but I just want to remind you guys, give the video a like, give the channel a subscribe. Plenty of great content on this channel. Get involved on our sort of social media platforms. All the links are in the description to this video, so please get involved. We'd love to hear your comments. If you've got any questions, we'll try and get them involved in the future shows with the people we have on, so we'll get your questions out there.
As long as the comments are clean, by the way.
Say again, sorry.
As long as the comments are clean.
Yeah, keep them clean. Keep them clean. This is a family show. So, Neil, I'm going to come on to you first because I'm going to give you the floor. Jack Grealish, we're moving on.
Here we go.
More specifically, we're looking at United's midfield, okay, which is obviously another area that United are looking to improve this season, whether improving the squad or improving the starting 11. After Pogba's unforgivable act, in my opinion, against West Ham on Wednesday night, we may be looking to strengthen the first 11 there, not just the squad. But it was interesting to get Jack Grealish's reaction after Aston Villa's game against Arsenal. He was specifically asked about whether he feels he'll be an Aston Villa, well, whether that was his last game at Villa Park and whether he'll be an Aston Villa player next season. And he was less than sort of convinced and did look, gave away a bit of a smile and looked like a player who might be on the move. Now, he has been linked with other clubs, Man City and Tottenham, but obviously the links and the rumours with United have been strong, really strong. And first of all, Neil, before you give me your opinion on Grealish, I just want a quick answer. Do you think this is a deal that will happen?
No.
No, you don't think it's a deal like that? Okay, that's great. That was pretty emphatic. So I'm going to give you the floor on Grealish now, and do you want to explain why you don't feel that necessarily Grealish might be right for United?
Look at it. Look, let's start with the off the field. Forget the on the field for the moment. Let's start with the off the field and go back 3 years, 4 years. This is a guy who's, has parties in hotel bedrooms, and he's always. You just can't trust him, and I just can't imagine what the Manchester nightlife would do to someone like a single bloke like Jack Grealish in and around Manchester. Could be going back to the bad days of, McGrath and Whiteside, and then when King joined and he was out all the time. We just can't afford to do that. And the money being bandied about, 80 million or whatever, it's just unbelievable amount of money for someone who's just completely unproven. And also, another question that's come up about Grealish, if he's that good, why hasn't he made an England squad yet? He doesn't even make a squad when Gareth Southgate names about 35 players. So there must be something there that's under the surface about Grealish. I don't actually rate him as much as a footballer. He was awful against us. He bottled it for the third goal. I mean, Pogba bottled it at the free kick the other day, and he bottled it closing down Pogba. So, you know, devil you know or the devil you don't know. And he's no ways a replacement for Pogba. I think Grealish is a possible signing if we didn't make Champions League, because we wouldn't be dining at the top table, so we wouldn't be buying at the top table. But me, the reason I say no is because I don't rate him. I think there'll be trouble there. There's stuff I'd love to say, but for legal reasons, I ain't going to say it. I just don't see it. I just can't see it. I can't see him in a Man United shirt. I've said this before. Can you see Jack Grealish walking down the tunnel at Old Trafford, walking out to Made of Stone by the Stone Roses? Not in a million years. I don't think you could tackle a rice pudding some days. It just doesn't do enough for me.
Okay,
and all talk about he's the captain. So
yeah. No, I know it's something that obviously you've been passionate about, Neil, and that's why I wanted to give you the floor on that one first. And
I could keep going, but
I know, yeah. But Joey, coming on to you, I mean, first of all, I don't know what your thoughts are on Grealish, but it's interesting now that Aston Villa have sort of got themselves into a position where they might even be able to stay up now on the final day. And there's a lot of reports out there and a lot of transfer stories suggesting that actually, if he stays up, you know, it's going to be a lot more difficult for United to sign him. And I think that obviously makes sense because Aston Villa's sort of transfer, I can see the reaction there. You know, obviously Aston Villa's transfer demands will be lessened, I would imagine, if they went down to the Championship. You know, do you agree? Do you think that this deal could hinge on whether he actually stays in the Premier League with Villa or whether they get relegated?
I'm sure it's has an effect on the value, but I think there might be a type of gentleman's agreement with the club and Grealish, where Grealish is like, listen, I've given you all these years. You know, there's another year in the Premier League for Aston Villa. Take the money and invest it in the squad. You know, invest it in 2 or 3 players. Now, I would gladly take him. I think he's a good option to come off the bench, start in cup games if someone's injured, can play out on the wings. I think he can carry the ball from midfield into attack. I think if you look at it, it feels like it's going to be Grealish or Van de Beek as one of the options. And I think for the type of player that I'm looking for coming into the squad that can fill in multiple positions, I think Grealish fits that better than Van de Beek does. Van de Beek might be a better midfielder, but Grealish gives you more in attack, I think, and out wide. As far as the transfer fee goes, listen, United aren't going to spend 40 to 60 million on a squad player. I can't. Yeah. Can you honestly think that's like, it just doesn't, for me, I just cannot see that happening, especially if they're going to spend, you know, the amount that's going to be required to get Jadon Sancho. So I guess if they get relegated, they probably take 30 million. If they don't, you're looking at 50, 60, I just don't think that's going to happen.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, like, just to finish on Jack Grealish, because we've just got something else to cover on the midfield. You know, my biggest thing with Jack Grealish has always been I have this curiosity to see him play in a better team. I don't know whether, you know, it will make any difference to him as a player. I just feel like sometimes poor performances at Villa and, you know, are down to the players that he plays with. But I might be totally wrong, you know. But I think we'll only know when he plays for a great team or a big team what his actual true colours are. Now,
Grealish literally has to pull his socks up.
Yeah, he do. Yeah, he is one of those players who decides to play with short socks and no shin pads. That's his choice, I suppose. It looks a bit different. I just want to look at some other midfield options that that have been in the media. They're not really going away. Thiago is. I don't know again whether United are being used as a sort of hurry up tool bait for Liverpool to get a deal done, because obviously he has been linked with Liverpool as well, but. Thiago's an interesting one. Obviously, back in 2013, it was a player that United reportedly tried to sign and were quite close to signing. And when you think at the time David Moyes was the manager, I think that would have been quite a coup for him to sign him from Barcelona. But the deal never happened. But I'm just come to you on this one. I'll come to you again, Joey, actually. With Thiago, do you think that actually, if there has been previous dialogue there, that might help a deal get done? Or do you think this is not even a non-starter?
Honestly, I don't even think it's a hard deal to do. The player wants to leave. He wants to play in England. Bayern want to get rid of him. Well, they probably don't want to get rid of him, but they're okay to see him leave. But again, I said it earlier, Bayern don't let players leave unless they're on the downside of their career. But for this transfer, I think Thiago is one of the best deep-lying playmakers we have in the world, I think. Like when we were linked with him, I was so happy because I felt like him next to Carrick was like, or to give Carrick a break at sometimes too, was just perfect for what that squad needed. And you look back at it and you're like, how many transfers would it have taken for Moyes to get into the top four? You don't know, because there was only one and it ended up being Marouane Fellaini. But with Thiago, I honestly think that the Liverpool or Bayern are just using the media and linking him to United, saying, okay, we want to get him to Liverpool. And it's come out that he wants to play for Liverpool and play for Klopp, which I think it'll be a great signing for them, man. That kind of pisses me off that he's going to be going there because I think that will get done. But, yeah, I think it's just they're using us to get Liverpool because I think it's a 40 million fee is what they're looking for, 30 or 40 million. And Liverpool aren't really trying to spend that much. So, yeah, like I said, just something to get them to hurry up, even though I think he'd be a fantastic addition for United.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he'd be a fantastic player. My only concern with that deal is if you brought someone like Thiago in, you're looking at a midfield three starting for United in some games. That would it be Thiago, Pogba, and Hernandez, and you would worry a little bit for me where the defensive protection is for a defense that's obviously shown a weakness. I mean, they may obviously use different players for the big games or tough away games, but that midfield would not offer a lot in terms of defensive stability, and that would concern me a little bit until we have a stronger defence. That's why I'm going to come on to you now, Neil, and think another midfielder that there's been strong links with, obviously in the last couple of days, has been Adriana Gay, who obviously used to be at Everton. He's 30 years old now. Apparently United have shown an interest. I mean, I've watched him a few times for PSG, and I obviously thought he'd just become a squad player for PSG, but I think he'd actually become quite an important part of their team, playing that sort of what I call Claude Makelele sort of N'Golo Kante role where he sort of marshals that midfield. Do you think he might be a better option than a natural, more attacking-minded midfielder?
No.
Sorry, if we're going to sign two midfielders for it.
Pardon?
Sorry, if we're going to sign two midfielders, do you think we'd be better looking at one of them being more defensive-minded, if you know what I'm saying?
We need a defensive-style midfielder, but I don't think Idrissa Gueye is the answer to the question. He just doesn't strike. I mean, I'm not being funny. There's hundreds of players that could play in the French league. I wouldn't say just because you're decent in the French league you can play over here. I think we do need a proper defensive midfielder. I quite like Ndidi at Leicester. I think he would be a much better option and probably cheaper and better on the wage bill as well, because I imagine Gay's on an absolute fortune at PSG. I'd like us to try and get a defensive midfielder, especially if we get into the Champions League, where you need that type of player, and we just McTominay's a bit young to do that yet. I just don't think I think we just miss that type of player in the midfield.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you mentioned McTominay, because I'll come on to you quickly on that, Joey, before we finish up. A lot of the talk when Matic signed his new deal a couple of weeks ago was that obviously the idea is now that the next couple of years while Matic is here is that he will help the development of Scott McTominay play that role as a defensive midfielder. And I suppose if we were to buy another defensive-minded midfielder this summer, then obviously the second choice might become Matic, and then all of a sudden a player that we feel, well, a lot of fans feel has got a real future at United would almost become third choice and not get a lot of games. So do you think we should just stick with, obviously, Matic to play that defensive role, and then obviously sooner or later McTominay will sort of master that role and he'll become more than an adequate backup and maybe replace Nemanja as a first choice DM?
I think McTominay has a long way to go before he's classed as just that defensive midfielder that Matic, like the job he does. McTominay physically can do the job, but I think his awareness, and his ability to read the game, sense pressure, I think that obviously will develop over time. I see him because I'm pretty sure McTominay started out as an attacker, and he's moved his way back. And I see him best as a box-to-box role. helping out the defense, but also getting forward, supplying the strikers and the wingers with balls. But as far as buying a defensive midfielder, listen, this summer's going to be really weird because United, if they get in the Champions League, realistically, they need 5 signings. A couple first teamers and a couple for squad depth while also unloading players. So you're looking at it and you're going, well, we know right wing is definitely priority number 1, I believe. I think Jadon Sancho all along has been number 1 priority. What's number 2? Is it midfield? You just signed, Matic to a 3-year contract. You have Fred, you have McTominay. But really, Matic for me is the only solid defensive midfielder that I trust in there in a big game. Yeah. I know that McTominay and Fred have done well together, but you also have to look at, we were talking earlier about how the center back wasn't a big issue before the lockdown. Well, post-lockdown, we're playing totally different. We're also playing with Pogba and Bruno and more or less 5 attackers. So you need that one person to sit in there, and you need a good center back pairing. You need a good defense if you're going to go out and attack like that. I don't know if they're going to sign a defensive midfielder. Would I? Probably. I have a dream. It'll never happen. My dream last year was to sign Frankie de Jong. I knew that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
My dream this year is to sign Sandro Tonali. Is it going to happen? Definitely not. But I would like them to look at, how they did with, signing younger players and letting them grow into it. Sign a midfielder like that, a Frankie de Jong, a Sandro Tonali, and let them grow into that role with, being groomed by Matic. Listen, I would probably sign a defensive midfielder. The quality of that midfielder, it doesn't have to be a starter, but someone that they can bring along. This is United. You have to have good players in every position. So for McTominay, if he really wants that job and he's good enough for that job, he will get that job. But we can't just give it to him, just because.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think there's some fantastic points you made there, and from both of you, actually. And we're getting to that point again where it's the end of the show, but I just want to finish on some other transfer news today that's not sort of linked to the playing side on the field. All for United are going to be getting the Twaman show on their channel, which is sort of presented by Radio Gaz. Fantastic guy, unbelievable show. We're going to be so lucky to have him on All for United. He's a guy that looks at the social media activity of Manchester United and Manchester United fans over the week and covers it in just an unbelievable way. Great presenter. So excited to be working with him on All for United. So look out for his show. It's going to be brilliant. It's all over our Twitter. It's all over our social media. So like I say, guys, that's all we've got time for today. Don't forget, give the channel a like. Give the video a like. Give the channel a subscribe. Keep looking on Twitter and all our social media platforms because we've got so much going on. This is just a channel that's growing all the time. It's getting massive. A shout out to Usman for another brilliant breakdown and banter show on Monday. That was great, Usman. Great to hear from you again. And we'll be previewing this weekend's game with Ben. It's a massive, massive weekend for United, And in terms of transfers, what happens this weekend will probably have a big impact on just what United do this summer. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next Tuesday for the next Just Another Transfer Show.